All right, so, like, imagine facing impossible odds. Like, what would you do if you woke up one morning and there was an army of, like, a gazillion orcs on your front lawn?
Oh, wow.
And not just any orcs, but, like, huge ones.
Yeah.
With, like, trolls the size of houses and some creepy sorcerer dude who can practically smell your fear, you know?
Right.
Well, that's basically the situation in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. We're diving deep into this epic battle from The Lord of the Rings today, and let me tell you, it's about way more than just a big fantasy fight.
Yeah, this one is really something.
It's about history and fear and that little flicker of hope that just refuses to die. And luckily, we have an awesome source to help us unpack it all. The Battle of the Pelennor Fields, a struggle for Middle-earth. But before we jump into the heat of battle, we gotta set the stage. We need to talk about Gondor, you know, the kingdom defending against all this chaos. Tolkien didn't just pull them out of thin air, he gave them a whole backstory, and it's pretty wild.
It really is. I mean, you gotta understand, Gondor has this incredibly rich history. They descended from the Númenóreans, right?
Okay, the who?
The Númenóreans, this ancient civilization that was basically known for being awesome at everything. Seafaring. They wrote the book, long lifespans, they had it down. Oh, and they were best buds with the elves.
Wait, hold up, elf friendships. Now that's a story for another day. But seriously, imagine having your family tree go back that far.
Oh my God.
Talk about awkward family reunions, am I right? But okay, so Gondor has this Númenórean bloodline. What does that mean for them? Like, practically speaking, what are their strengths?
Well, think about it this way. Because of their ancestors, they were incredible builders. They had this amazing architecture, their armies were well organized, and they had this deep, deep sense of history and duty.
Okay, so they're strong, organized, and they take their duties seriously. That sounds like a pretty good starting point for defending against a horde of orcs. But I have a feeling there's a but coming, right?
There's always a but. While all those things were strengths, they could also be weaknesses. Well, think about it. They were so used to being the best, so proud of their heritage, that they could be inflexible, slow to change, and maybe, just maybe, a little too confident in their own abilities. And those cracks in their armor are exactly what Sauron knew how to exploit.
So even though they were strong, they had these kind of hidden vulnerabilities, like chinks in their armor.
Precisely. And those chinks were made even worse after the last alliance of elves and men. Remember that whole thing?
Yeah, wasn't that when Isildur, you know, one ring to rule them all? Isildur took the one ring from Sauron?
The one and only. But here's the thing.
Okay.
While it was a victory for the good guys, it came at a steep price. Gondor lost a lot of their best warriors in that fight. And to make matters worse, with Sauron gone, it created a power vacuum.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. So even though they won, it kind of backfired.
In a way, yes.
Man, talk about a Pyrrhic victory.
Exactly. And that's what really set the stage for Sauron's eventual return.
And of course, for the whole Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
Right.
So Sauron is like, bye, Felicia, I'm out of here for now. But really, he's just biding his time, rebuilding his forces, and plotting his revenge.
Oh, absolutely. He knew he couldn't just brute force his way back into power. He had to play the long game.
So what was his strategy? I mean, how do you even begin to take down a kingdom like Gondor? They've got walls, armies, the whole 9 yards.
Right. But Sauron, he was smart, cunning. He knew that Gondor's biggest weakness wasn't something you could just hit with a battering ram.
Oh, so we're talking psychological warfare now.
Exactly. He understood the power of fear, of doubt.
Okay, so how did he actually use that? Like, how do you weaponize fear against an entire kingdom?
Well, he knew Gondor was haunted by its past, right? By past defeats, by the weight of their own legacy. So he exploited that.
Because he's basically playing mind games with them, trying to make them doubt themselves before the fight even begins.
Exactly. He used his agents to spread rumors, to amplify existing fears. He wanted to make them question everything. Their leaders, their strength, their very right to exist.
It's like that old saying, divide and conquer, right? If he could break their spirit, the rest would be easy.
Precisely. And let's not forget about those Nazgul he sent out. Talk about psychological warfare on a whole other level.
Oh yeah, those ring wraiths. Those guys were bad news. Just the thought of them is enough to give me the creeps. They were looking for the one ring, weren't they?
Yeah, but their presence did so much more than just scout for the ring. They were like living embodiments of Sauron's power. Just their appearance was enough to send entire villages running for the hills.
So while Sauron is out there rebuilding his armies, gathering his forces, he's got these terrifying ring wraiths flying around, freaking everyone out. It's like a two-pronged attack on their minds and bodies.
Exactly. He was attacking them on multiple levels.
Yeah.
And sadly, it was incredibly effective.
Yeah, and I imagine it had a devastating effect on morale inside Minas Tirith, their capital city.
Oh, absolutely. You got to imagine the mood in this city was beyond grim.
They were just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. And to make matters worse, their leader, Denethor, the steward of Gondor, he was, well, let's just say he wasn't exactly the picture of hope and resilience.
What happened to him?
Well, Denethor, he had access to a Palantir, one of those seeing stones, right?
Yeah, those things let you see stuff happening far away, don't they?
Exactly. But Sauron, being the master manipulator that he was, he used that against Denethor.
Oh, no. So not only is he waging a psychological war on the general populace, but he's also targeting their leader directly. Talk about hitting them where it hurts.
Right. Sauron, he could twist what Denethor saw in the Palantir, show him visions of despair, of inevitable defeat.
So Denethor's getting a constant feed of negativity, of hopelessness straight from the enemy.
Exactly, and it completely broke him. By the time Sauron's armies actually arrived at Minas Tirith, Denethor was a shell of his former self, completely consumed by despair.
Man, talk about a leader losing faith at the worst possible moment. That's rough.
It was a recipe for disaster.
So, to recap, Sauron is back with a vengeance. He's got his armies ready to strike, his ring wraiths are causing chaos and fear, and Gondor's leader is basically out of commission. Not exactly a hopeful situation.
Not at all. And that's where the Battle of the Pelennor Fields begins. With Gondor teetering on the brink of collapse, their fate hanging by a thread.
So it's like everything is going wrong, right?
Yeah, it's about as bleak as it gets.
And then, bam, the battle begins. March 15th, 3019. Sauron unleashes everything he's got against Minas Tirith. Can you, set the scene for us?
Oh man, it is intense. Imagine this. The orcs, thousands upon thousands of them, they're like a sea of darkness just pouring out onto the Pelennor Fields. The ground is shaking. They're all heading straight for Minas Tirith.
Talk about a bad day to be a Gondorian soldier. I mean, what's going through their heads? They're facing an army that just won't quit. It's like, do you even try to fight back at that point, or just, accept your fate?
Well, to their credit, they fought like hell.
Yeah.
Remember, Minas Tirith was a fortress built to withstand pretty much anything. They had archers on the walls, catapults, hurling stones, the whole 9 yards. They even had those Oliphants.
Wait, the what?
The Oliphants. You know, those giant elephant-like creatures?
Oh, right. The giant elephants with tusks the size of trees. Yeah, I forgot about those guys. But even with all that, it still wasn't looking good for Gondor, was it?
Not really. They were outnumbered, outmatched, and let's be real, their morale was in the pits. Sauron had done a real number on them.
So what changed? How did they manage to turn the tide? Everyone knows the good guys win in the end, but it's like H-O-W.
Well, that's where Rohan comes in.
Ah, the Rohirrim, the Horth Lords of Rohan. Everybody loves a good cavalry charge. So they just swooped in and saved the day, right?
It wasn't quite that simple, but their arrival was definitely a turning point. Imagine this. Gondor's forces, they're exhausted, they're outnumbered, they're ready to collapse. And then, in the distance, they hear it, the sound of horns.
No.
Oh, yeah. And then, over the crest of a hill, comes the riders of Rohan. Thousands of them. King Théoden at their head, charging down on the orcs with everything they've got.
Dude, I get chills just thinking about it. That's like the ultimate cavalry charge in all of fantasy literature.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those moments that just defines epic fantasy. And it completely changed the course of the battle.
Okay, but amidst all this chaos, all this fighting, we got to talk about Éowyn. She wasn't about to let some old prophecy tell her she couldn't fight.
Right. She disguised herself as a man and rode into battle alongside the other riders of Rohan. She was a total badass.
Which is even more incredible when you consider the societal norms of that time.
Yeah.
She was expected to just sit on the sidelines, but she was like, nope, I don't think so.
Yeah, she was like, I'm not letting some outdated ideas about gender stop me from defending my people. And you know who she came face to face with?
Let me guess. The Witch-king.
Ding, ding, ding. Sauron's right-hand man, the guy who thought he was invincible.
Yeah, the one who's always like, no man can kill me.
Exactly. He thought he had it all figured out, that no one could touch him. But he underestimated Éowyn big time.
And her line when she takes him down, I am no man, just chills. So the Witch-king, this seemingly unstoppable force of evil, is taken down by a woman.
Talk about a subversion of expectations. It's this amazing moment of triumph, not just for Éowyn, but for everyone who has ever been told they aren't good enough, strong enough, or brave enough.
It's like Tolkien was saying, don't underestimate anyone, especially the people you dismiss.
Exactly. But even with the Witch King gone and Sauron's forces scattering, the battle still wasn't over, was it?
Yeah, there was still that whole matter of Sauron, not being completely defeated yet.
Right, this was just one battle, one incredibly significant battle in a much larger war.
So what are the biggest takeaways from the Battle of the Pelennor Fields? What makes this battle more than just orcs versus humans?
Well, I think it shows the power of unity, right? Gondor would have fallen without Rohan's help, and Rohan, in turn, drew strength from Gondor's resilience.
It's like even when all hope seems lost, even when facing impossible odds, courage, sacrifice, and a little bit of hope can make all the difference.
And that's a message that resonates just as strongly today as it did when Tolkien first wrote it.
Absolutely. And I think it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there's always a reason to fight for what's right, for what we believe in, even if it seems impossible.